All right, good morning, race fans. Campbell Woods here. I'm in the trailer here on our way back to campus from Lake Meahog, which is down in Cortland Manor. We've been down here this morning doing a little bit of speed work and time trialing some different lineups for our IRA 4. And I have been meaning to try to refilm this. I filmed a recap of the Vail, and it got a little bit long-winded, and I didn't really like everything that was in there, and so I have been wanting to refilm it and just haven't had some time to sit down. So I'm trying to take advantage of my my driving time here and give everyone a little recap of where we are at. The Vail Regatta was about 2 weeks ago now, or a week and a couple of days. I'm going to give a very rapid rundown of our results. We had a varsity double that were entered. That was our spare pair of Alex Bitten and Carter Brandel, who were in that boat. They rode in the time trial. They came in 4th place in the time trial, which was a great result for them. And then on the afternoon of day 2, they placed, I believe, 4th. I think it was 4th in the semifinal, and then that projected them to go into the petite final race on Sunday. We ended up scratching that boat from the final because there was a big storm that was predicted to come through, and they were basically one of the only boats that was still going to row that afternoon, and so we kind of made a tactical withdrawal. The next boat up was the 4th Varsity 8. We had kind of gone back and forth about splitting this boat up into 4s versus racing them as an 8. We ended up deciding to race them as an 8 because in practice and at some of our races they had been pretty close to the 3V, and so we put them as a B boat in the 3V category. They came in last in the time trial, but they were pretty close to Jacksonville's time, and they were reasonably close enough to St. Joe's time to make a run at potentially beating Joe's. That boat also, they rode in a semifinal on Friday afternoon. They placed last in their semifinal and were headed for the petite final in that event, and were unfortunately also scratched for the same reason as the double was. The 3V had a lineup that had been pretty dramatically adjusted, changed in the weeks leading up to the Vail. We were kind of pumped about that boat because we felt like we had definitely found some speed with that crew that we didn't have before. And I am forgetting what place they came in the time trial. I want to say it was 4th. And then in their semifinal, they placed 2nd. I believe it was behind Santa Clara. And that projected them to go to the grand final. The grand final on Saturday, they had the kind of big competitors in there were the crews from Santa Clara and LaSalle, and I believe Drexel was the other big one. And the Drexel crew took off really fast and kind of pushed out to an early lead and just maintained it. Santa Clara and LaSalle got in a really close duel, and Marist was kind of able to hang with the two of them. We were about 3 or 4 seats down for the first 1,000 meters, and then in the third 500 they both made a big move, and they were able to get up a little bit more. It was like tip to tail on the Marist crew, and so we were kind of looking at a pretty solid 4th place finish in that crew. And unfortunately, our 6th seat caught an ejecto crab that sent him flying out of the boat in the last maybe 100 meters or so of that race. And so he ended up in the water. The boat had to stop, and Joe's snuck past to take 5th. But I think that looking back at that race, you should view that as a 4th place finish. That we just had a little bit of a catastrophe at the end. The second varsity, they played. We had 1 seat changed in there in the lead up to the weekend. That boat placed in the top 5, I believe, in the time trial. And then in the semifinal, they placed 3rd. It was interesting. They came off the water from the semifinal pretty upset. They did not feel like they had a good race. And so the coaches were kind of like, well, that's good. That means you've got more speed to find in the final. You haven't shown all your cards yet. Their final, it's been long enough now that I'm having trouble remembering exactly how it went down, but they got into a kind of tight battle with the 2V from Santa Clara for 4th place. I think Drexel, Temple, LaSalle kind of all took off, and it was Marist and Santa Clara for the 4th place position. And very close battle between those two crews that Santa Clara ended up winning by about a deck or maybe 2 seats or so. The varsity 8 rode, they were in 5th or 6th place in the time trial, and then in the semifinal in the afternoon, it was Temple and I believe LaSalle. I'm not remembering correctly, but then a close battle. I'm sorry, it was Temple and MIT and Colgate who were in a very close battle with Marist. Marist ultimately not getting the better end of that battle, came in 4th place, about 2 seconds behind Colgate, so maybe 6 seats or so. And then in the back of the pack of that race were Santa Clara and University of San Diego. The last day, in the petite final, the varsity placed 4th. They got beaten by Santa Clara and St. Joe's and USD. So that's a quick rundown of the results. I think I don't want to dive super deep into every boat. I think the story of the weekend revolved around the varsity 8 and the goal of qualifying the team for the IRA. We have known, or we talked about at length throughout the season, that the kind of the race of the weekend was going to be the semifinal. That semifinal race was going to be really tight. That there were a lot of good crews in there, and we just didn't get it done. We did not execute our best rowing. We did not row aggressively enough, and we got beat by Colgate and MIT, who I think are beatable teams for us. We beat MIT earlier in the season, and I don't think that Colgate is a systemically faster crew than Marist this year. But we just got beat in that race, and then because we got fourth in the semifinal, that took an axe to the team's opportunity to qualify for the IRA. So there's kind of multiple facets to that, and I want to unwrap that a little bit, because I think it's again, it's kind of the important moment of the spring. Or at least the kind of big message from the weekend was that we didn't get that done. We did not qualify the boat for the IRA, and why, and what led to that. And I think that there are a number of different factors. If I could, try and pinpoint them, I think the first thing is that it is possible that we peaked a little bit too early. I've talked to the rowers about that. I think it's impossible to quantify. But there was a feeling from the crew like we had found all the speed there was to find, and then we like ran out of new speed to find. Personally, I don't really believe that. I think that a lot of the other mental aspects of the situation and of the weekend and the racing contributed to this result, and I think it would be impossible to say that it was that, but I'll leave it out there on the table. That it's possible that we peaked a little bit too early, and then maybe we need to adjust our training program slightly to accommodate that. I think that we had some really good wins early in the season. Our crew came out of the gate a little bit more prepared than some of the other teams in the early season. I think you can, as an example, look at our race with MIT. At the time we raced MIT, they were busy dealing with some injuries. They were still getting on, like very recently getting on the water. The Charles had been frozen up there for a long time. They do not go away for a training camp, and Marist does. And so you saw a little bit of the product of all that speed that we were able to gain at our training camp. So I think that when you get those early wins, there's a couple of different things that happen, but amongst them is that you start to count other teams out. And there's a number of different reasons for that are psychological, but it's very, very hard to keep focusing on a team that you feel like you beat. And so when you're one of these athletes and you go and you get a race win, you're looking in your rear view mirror, and all you see are the dead bodies of all these teams that you've run over and taken their shirts. And that's a really good feeling. And you start to discount how close those races were or how talented those teams are. And you start to develop a little bit of an attitude of like, oh yeah, we can beat those guys because we've beaten them before. So there's that aspect. I also think that there's an element of feeling like it was easy when you won in the past, and there's a very good like kind of brain chemistry reasoning for this. When you get a big win, in that moment when you're coming across the finish line, you get this huge hit of dopamine and adrenaline, and your body and your brain kind of forget how hard you had to push. You go back and watch the race win that we had at the Occoquan Invitational earlier in the spring, and boy, our guys had to really sell their souls for those wins in the varsity and the second varsity 8. And I think it is a little bit too easy to look back and say, oh yeah, we can do that again, no problem. And you start to acquire a little bit of an attitude that you think that it's going to be easier than it really was. You start to forget how much of yourself you had to give to that race in order to win. The team that ended up qualifying in the long run was MIT, and I think it's worth mentioning that MIT has qualified for the IRA every year for the last 2 or 3 years, and there, I think there is something to that, only in the sense that I think their athletes are used to it, and they know what that stage is going to feel like. When they go to the race and they have qualification on the line, they've been in that position for the last couple of years, and they know what that feels like. And so that was definitely something that a lot of athletes mentioned in the aftermath of this race, was that we had some great race wins early on in the season, and a lot of those race wins came from this kind of very loose, freewheeling, super aggressive style of racing, which in my opinion is how you have to race in the 8. I really don't think that you can race defensively in the 8. The only defense is a good offense, and so I just got the feeling at this regatta like our boats, especially our top 2 8s, were rowing a little bit tight and a little bit nervous and a little bit defensively. I think that our team being ranked in the lead up to this race, not only contributed to our sense of maybe overconfidence or not thinking deeply enough about the threat of the crews we were facing, or also contributed to lighting a fire under some other teams. I mean, I'm well aware that there are teams who were very close to us during the regular season. A great example would be St. Joe's. Joe's was less than a second behind us at that big win at the Occoquan, and for sure that crew in the aftermath of that race was thinking, if we had only had 50 more meters, we would have had that win. And Marist goes sailing off into the sunset with everyone's shirts, and not really thinking as deeply about that as probably Joe's was. MIT was behind us by about 2.5 seconds at our duel there. Same thing, I'm sure they were thinking about all the speed they were going to find and how they were going to come catch us. So all of that is not to make excuses, but just to kind of put people in the frame of mind of how the coaches are viewing this result. We are upset. We are upset that this has been a really fantastic group of athletes who worked really hard and we believe are capable of performing better than what we showed at the Dad Vail. And so we're upset that we didn't show our best rowing. We're upset for our athletes because we feel like they did a lot of hard work and earned an opportunity to go race at the IRA. I think that at the end of the day, while we are upset, we are also trying to view it as a learning opportunity. This was the first time in quite a while that this crew has been in a position to qualify, has been fast enough to potentially do it. That is, a double-edged sword. We hope that having been in this position, we will know what that feels like going into future years, that the athletes will learn how to stay a little bit looser, how to bring more of that, kind of wild aggression to their racing, regardless of their ranking or where they think they're going to stack up against other teams. That we learn to treat all the other programs around us as a threat no matter what. And I also hope that, and I also think we're young and we're going to have more opportunities. There was only one senior in this crew, two if you count our coxswain, Tessa, and so, while we did not get what we wanted out of this race this year, I think that, that we ultimately learned a lot, and we'll be able to use those lessons in the years to come. I am, not really. Sorry, I'm just trying to think of kind of where I want to go with this next. I think that the big piece I want to kind of press home to all our followers and our parents and our fans is we felt like we could do better. I think we showed better during the season. We're bummed that we did not. I do not. I don't think that the athletes did something wrong. I would say the only major caveat to that is I was pretty upset at the Varsity 8 about how we approached our petite final on Saturday after not getting what we wanted in the semifinal. It was clear that everyone was extremely upset after the semifinal on Friday night. There were some tears shed. There were lots of people who were not happy. That is totally fair, and Coach Stratton and I felt the same way. With that said, we felt like what we did on Saturday in our petite final was nowhere near our best rowing, that we allowed three crews to beat us, and that we were essentially sulking about having not made the grand final. I do not think that is what we owe to ourselves, to our team, to the university, and to our competitors. And so we had some words with that boat after that race, that we simply can't approach races like that, regardless of where we are mentally. Like, we need to find a way to rally together, and we need to do better than that. And so I would say that's the only part of this performance that I blame our athletes for. I believe that our semifinal on Friday was not our best strokes those strokes were taken with 100% of the effort that we had to give. So where do we end up? The team did not qualify for the IRA with the 8. Super unfortunate. Again, we felt like they deserved to. In kind of wrapping up the regular season, I think we just want to express how proud of these athletes we are and how far they've come in what is really a very short period of time. These guys are racing a lot of boats with a lot of upperclassmen in them, a lot of experience. There are several boats that have a whole bunch of international talent in them, from national teams all around the world, and our athletes have done a phenomenal job this year of getting themselves fit, learning how to fight, learning how to row better, attacking every day with a lot of passion and grit, and I'm so excited, and I know Coach Stratton is too, to see these guys continue to develop in the years to come. The recruiting has gone well this year, and we are not going to stop. We are going to keep grinding. These goals are attainable. The athletes have seen it now, how attainable they are. Our kind of big parting words to the team, aside of some of the lessons learned from the weekend, was let's go get faster. Let's start closing the gap to some of these next teams, like Temple and Drexel and LaSalle, all three of whom were significantly faster than the rest of the field at the Dad Vail. None of those teams are that far away that they can't be caught. And so we are going to have our eyes focused on that as our goal in the year to come. And we are not going to slow down or wait for anybody. And again, I think these athletes should be very proud of what they've accomplished. We are going to be sending 4 to the IRA. We just completed our last time trialing for that boat, and it looks like our lineup is going to be Will Shockley at the stroke seat, Nicholas Scarano, a freshman, at 3, Ryan Tuttle, another freshman, at 2 seat, and then Charlie Latimer, a sophomore, in the bow. And they will be coxed by Tessa Kursman, who is a senior, graduating senior. And so that boat is busy training. Reed Livingston and Kevin Murray are going to be our spare oars for that race. And the seat racing for those fours, the seat racing for the 4 was incredibly close. Some of the closest that we've had. We ran longer seat races of about 5 minutes, and the speed that these guys had were within a seat or two during all of those switches. So a lot to be proud of in that group. We are excited to head out to California and see what we can do. Our boat last year placed 13th overall. They won the 3rd level final, and we are excited about this crew. They are definitely fitter than last year's boat, and we think that they have the potential to move up from where we were last year, up into the 2nd final, or even taking a shot at being in the grand final. And so we're excited to go out there and have an opportunity to do that. The only other thing I wanted to mention was that we're graduating a large senior class this Friday. 8 rowers and 2 coxswains, and what a crew that class has been. I don't want to go down like the whole list of names of everybody and get sucked into a rabbit hole of each individual athlete, but this group came in at a time that the team was in a big transition. Coming out of 2022, the team had been to the IRA. There was a lot of speed and technical knowledge going out the door that year with a very large senior class. In the varsity 8 that year, all but one of the athletes was a senior, and this group came in and got tossed in to the mix, and there was a huge fall off in performance that was not their fault. In fact, most of these guys were novices. A good number of them were novices in their freshman year. And boy, for the first 2 years of their career here at Marist, the future did not look very bright. The fact that this group has had the retention that it's had, has enjoyed the success that it has had in its closing phases, is really a testament to their loyalty and patience to this process. And so Josh and I just, we want to thank them for their hard work, but also for hanging on with us and for continuing to give us their best efforts. I know that at times it did not look like there was a light at the end of the tunnel. And when we were talking to this crew at the end of the season, we were talking about how, okay, last year we finally could see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that felt really exciting. And this year it felt like we were standing in the mouth of the tunnel, and now we're ready to leap out. And so a lot of that feeling is owed to good culture, good relationships, and good practices that have been maintained and built and nurtured by our seniors. And they should all be proud of that hard work that they have done. This team is in a way brighter, better place because of them, and we're super proud of all of them and excited to see what they're going to do with their lives and careers as they leave Marist. That is all I have, I believe. Oh, there is one more thing. There were a lot of questions during the regatta about there was some drama in the time trial event that Hobart's crews got thrown out. And there was a lot of rumor milling going around online about what happened and how it happened and why. And so I just wanted to briefly state that they were removed from the time trial events or excluded because their coxswains did not weigh in before the race. They were told after the boats had gone out on the water by the referees that their coxswains had not weighed in and they were going to be excluded from those events. I have my own personal feelings about the whole situation. There was an effort made to, what's the word? Like re-enable them or allow them to jump into one of the semifinals as a 7th boat. That effort ultimately failed, in my opinion, for good reasons. We do feel like there was a meeting with all of the head coaches, and the referee staff effectively said, hey, if all the coaches want to agree, if there's unanimous approval, we can add Hobart in as a seventh vote. There was not unanimous approval. There were several teams who objected. I wanted to point out that there was a lot of rumor milling online that the coaching team from USD were behind this because USD was the crew who got into the AB semis. They benefited from Hobart's exclusion. And I just wanted to state for the record that they, as well as all the other coaches, did not know this had happened until after it had happened. There would have been no way for any of the coaches to know whether another team's coxswains had weighed in or not. That's a kind of ludicrous supposition that people have made. And USD voted in favor of Hobart being reinstated. So, whatever you read online, don't believe it all. In my personal opinion, it was a very bad situation all around. The primary cause was Hobart should have weighed in their coxswains. It was a massive error to make. I don't know why it happened, but it's certainly not something I can imagine happening with our own coxswains. I did not have to remind them to weigh in. The fact that they needed to weigh in had been stated all over the race documents and in the coxswains meeting. I think there is a small amount of secondary blame to be placed on the race referees and organizers. In my opinion, an effort should have been made for those referees to reach out to Hobart's coaches and inform them before they went out. Also, the coxswains, when they weighed in, received special wristbands that said they had weighed in, and none of the referees were checking those wristbands on the dock, which they probably should have. So anyway, there's a little bit of your race drama. Again, I think from my perspective, I was very upset at the race organizers and referee group who put us in an awkward situation, almost trying to guilt everyone into allowing Hobart back in to the semifinals. A move that in many people's cases would have meant voting directly against our own team's interests and creating a more competitive and more difficult semifinal for our crew. We were asked to do that in a meeting with the Hobart coaching staff there. I did not feel that was appropriate. Basically asking us to make an enemy out of a peer team who we have a lot of respect for and have had some great competition with this year. And we all felt gutted for Hobart's athletes that they had been excluded in this way. But it was an impossible situation. We all have to abide by the rules at these races. Ultimately, an exception was made to allow them back in to compete in the third final, which is probably the best outcome that could have happened given the circumstances. And we wish everyone well, up at Hobart, and it was just a bad situation all around, and we felt pretty horrible about the whole situation. So there's a little bit of your inside line. I only wanted to dive into that to flatten some of the rumor milling that has gone around online. If people on Reddit or whatever want to get their facts straight before they start pointing a bunch of fingers at different teams and people, I think that would be better for the rowing community. In general, I find that all of our peer coaches care super deeply about not just their own teams and athletes, but everyone's athletes and the sport in general. And I expect that community will continue to be that way moving into the future. that's a wrap for this video. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We will come at you with some more details about the IRA in the days to come. And you know, as the team heads off, most of the team heads off to start their summer. We're wishing all of them well, and I think the overall feeling from the coaching staff is, wow, what a great year. What a bummer that we didn't get this done at the Vail, but hopefully we've learned some lessons from the season and from the Vail, and we have an opportunity now to get faster and take another big step as we head into the 2027 campaign. Everybody have a great week, and go Red Foxes.